Hey, so what do you want to talk about today? Oh, I'd like to talk about the weather. Maybe can I talk about how my day was? No, I want to talk about the persistence of evil spirits in bringing evil upon people. Because this is news from heaven, by the way, if you haven't guessed that already. Because the persistence of evil spirits in bringing evil upon people just might be what dictates how our day went today. And if we're talking about weather, well, why don't we just pay a little bit of homage to our head weather that we always reference in this show, because it matters some if it's sunny outside, but what really matters is what's the climate like in the mind, because you can have all kinds of external conditions that absolutely have no effect on you if the internal conditions don't match. So how can we get it so that we, regardless of what's going on out there, have happiness? And why wouldn't we? You can say, oh, it's rainy outside, I'm not happy, but we've got so much, you got umbrellas, you got a furnace, things don't get affected that much by it. But why is there space in life for us to get down? Why are there so many things that are, listen, there's people out there that bother us, there's realities, is that how you draw a reality? There are stories that we're telling ourselves and being told, and all that stuff. Where does it come from? And why is it so potent? Why is it reinforced? Who is buying that real estate in the mind? Well, according to Swedenborg, man, it gets weird. Okay, here we go. This is from his Journal of Spiritual Experiences, and the early journal. This is when he's just first exploring this world that underpins the conscious experience that we go through, about the persistence of bringing evil spirits in bringing evil upon people. That's where we got that fabulous upon from. So not just that there's a link here, we've got ourselves evil spirits, which already dun dun dun, but not only that, they can interface with people in some way, and not only that, but they won't stop. They're not just gonna give up because you swat them away. You ever think about the persistence of like a horsefly in bringing evil upon you, or like a mosquito that you just think, okay, I'll swish you away, but they're built to come back and come back. Now, that's not to say horsefly is evil. It sure is scary and painful, but it's just doing what all animals do, which is following the urges built into them by how they are designed. But it could be a metaphor for maybe the persistence, or correspondence for the persistence of evil spirits, the horseflies of the mind. From experience, I have learned several times that spirits do not ever abstain from, but very obstinately persist in doing evil to people on earth. Yeah, so that's us. Okay, so we don't know why, but we've got a problem, which is that there's these spirits who are going to continually try to cause problems for us. Okay, well, is that a little bit of dark matter? Because why? Meaning, what's the explanation for why the world... Oh, look at how much of a mess I've made of this. For why is there so much negativity in the way we see life? And why can things be going relatively well physically, but yet there's just all kinds of worry and anxiety? What is feeding this? What is funding it? Is it that we have some kind of, whatever an evil spirit is, some kind of negative entity? There's an intent. That's what it is. The intent is to create this state in us. Yeah, this is pretty edgy. So that whenever the opportunity offers itself to them, they cling to someone for many days, and indeed continuously, without interruption and without stopping. And I feel like we need to step back for just a second here, because this brings up the classic issue of reading Swedenborg stuff. Well, there's a couple classic issues. Issue number one is, what is that? What's going on? How did I even write? What are you talking about? Evil spirits? This is weird. Why did I click on this video? That's one. Okay, there's nothing we can do about that. Two, when Swedenborg is describing something like these spirits that obstinately persist in doing evil to people, how much is that us versus ES? There's US and there's ES. ES being Emanuel Swedenborg. And so he at times describes how, and to differentiate Swedenborg, will give him his trademark curly wig, which actually at the time wasn't trademark at all. It's what everybody wore because their hair was all falling out and all that. So he talks about being led into a state where he can clearly sense the operation of the spiritual world. So there is our physical reality that we're inside here, but all of us are participating in a much larger spiritual reality. And this reality is what's responsible for the consciousness, our life force itself comes out of this, and there's a negative and positive aspect to it. So you've got heavenly influences and hellish influences, and most of the time to us, we're affected by these, but we don't really sense them or feel them directly. There's a buffer here between us and them. But with Swedenborg, he was so open to those wavelengths that he could actually sense openly and clearly what's going on. I was a little distressed. What's going on? Because he wasn't actually that bothered by it, as you'll see in this. Actually, this one ends pretty happily. What's going on with the spiritual world around us? So when we learn that there are these evil spirits trying to cause harm to Swedenborg, is this something that we need to worry about? Is that something that we are feeling in our lives? I don't know. Because Swedenborg says he will talk about, and we'll see this in a minute, there's certain aches and pains that are brought on in his body that he says only somebody whose inner senses are open to the world of spirits can feel. How often does that happen with us? I don't know. This whole thing is basically a big asterisk disclaimer to say, just because here we're talking about this happening to Swedenborg doesn't mean that your arm is hurting and that means there's an evil spirit clinging to you and trying to destroy you. But there's some applicable truth in this whole picture about the way the totality of heaven and hell operate on us. And I can't go in and say, here's the one-to-one on that. So just read it with an open mind, let it sink in, but don't go and say, yikes, this means there's literally spirits clinging to me right now. Because we don't know. We don't know what it means. This fact was proven to me lucidly several times. For they brought on, here I was talking about, pains in various parts of my body. Now in the feet, so that I could hardly walk. Now in the dorsal nerves, so that I could hardly stand up, but fell over. Likewise in parts of my head. Just very rude. They did this so unyieldingly that the pain and other effects lasted for quite a while and without interruption. Interesting, too, that as part of Swedenborg's reconnaissance work here, he has to just sit around and, let these evil spirits pinch his nerves. I guess it was all to get him understanding what's going on and then get this information to us. So thanks, Swedenborg, for taking one for the team. That these things were brought on by evil spirits, I was taught plainly enough by the ones who spoke with me. I think he's talking about the evil spirits who spoke with him. So he's doing research like, oh, this is what you do. Why are you doing that? For alternately, the pains were allayed and worsened, and really suddenly. And notice here how he is doing it through experimentation. You wouldn't call this quite science. This is a beaker, by the way, because we're not looking at controls and double blinds and all this sort of stuff. But Swedenborg, as a career scientist, it's interesting that the way that he's learning things about the spiritual world has a bit of that flair, at least. And who knows, maybe back in the day in which he was writing this would qualify as science because things were not nearly as refined as they are now. But he was seeing it because I could tell when I was talking with these spirits, they could say something or do something, and it would change the pain right away, so I knew it was them causing it. To recount the experiences in detail would be too much. Could be too much too much because it's too long, or too much because it was too intense and he doesn't want to revisit it. I don't know. So this is where we are now, if we're stepping back as just, okay, we've got somebody's strange story about their experiences. Don't discount that, because a lot of people go through things that are outside the realm of what we normally think happens in life. But how do the rest of us who aren't having these sorts of experiences access this? And what can we learn about that? If this is true, it is happening in reality. So it should be able to lead us to some kind of principles. Just like if you're experiencing something falling, that can teach you about gravity. So what's this teaching us about the larger picture of life? About evil spirits, this is the next number that's related to that one. About evil spirits, they are able to lie down and feed together with believers, according to Isaiah in those spots. And this is interesting, because wasn't he just going on and talking about evil spirits and how they're causing pain in all these parts of his body? You'd think what he's going to try to do is get revenge on these evil spirits, or at least get them far away from him. Isn't that what we're trying to do, is shun this problem? But here we are, lying down and feeding together. If we're putting Swedenborg in this believer category, how's that all going to work? And what does this mean, this mysterious, the lion lying down with a lamb? Today, again, I was shown by actual experience how the evil, in fact, the worst ones of the devil's gang, could be present and make the greatest effort to destroy my beliefs. So here we have a different motive and a different action. Before, it's causing pain in Swedenborg's body, but here, destroying his beliefs. And that is worth drawing, because Swedenborg makes this claim that there's this thing in us which he calls conscientia. One of the best words we can translate it as is conscience. And what he really says that means is our sense of what is right and wrong. And that which might sound like, okay, that could be important, but it's not that. I mean, it's something. It's not everything. It sort of does sound a lot like Jiminy Cricket. He's got a little top hat on there. Also, this word that he uses for conscience encapsulates consciousness. So it's something a little deeper if you think about this as a human head that's conscious. So I'll spare you my writing. So there's something more. All this goes together to somehow, and I like to put this together with destroy my beliefs. So right and wrong and the underlying beliefs that are the framework, that is able to support what it is that we believe is right and wrong, even regardless of as to how accurate this overall is. If we're really living according to what we believe and trying to do right, when we do have a sense of what is right and wrong, that is the path to what Swedenborg calls heaven, and that is absolutely what Swedenborg describes the hells are most interested in destroying. That they are coming at this all the time, that they want nothing more than to destroy somebody's ability to tell right from wrong, because they're trying to inject harmful things, try to lead you into a kind of life that's ultimately going to destroy you and destroy other people. And here, they're really working to destroy Swedenborg's beliefs, not even to destroy his head or to destroy his happiness, although there certainly are times when it seems like that's what they're doing in Swedenborg, but really here, we're looking at they're trying to destroy his beliefs. And this is a big deal. Beliefs are important to Swedenborg. And so what's he going to do about it? He's going to blast them with a missile. Even though they labored very intensely, their attempts were utterly devoid of any force or power. So they were shown to me actually lying down together and being fed. And they were fed too, for then they even got to hear the points of faith enumerated. Okay. Just think about that for a second, would you? Here we have Swedenborg back up here, and you see, he's smiling here, even though we have these, let's say that there's these evil spirits that are trying to come in and destroy his beliefs through his mind, through affecting his emotions, through introducing false concepts. Whatever they do, they're trying to destroy those. It has no impact on him. right? Because of how much he's made these concepts part of who he is, and how much there's the work of regeneration has been done by the Lord. So that's not going to be shaken. And the leverage points. How does hell destroy your beliefs in the first place? Well, these red arrows have got to have somewhere they can hook onto, right? And the place they can really hook on is if you have a belief that you are greater and more important than other people, or a desire to put as primary material gratification. If you have those and you're really invested in your sense of self-image, and you're really worshiping and venerating whatever gives you the most pleasure, regardless of its impact, that's where hell can really get you. But if the Lord comes on in with love and truth and gets rid of those and replaces them instead with a love for what's right, just, honest, and fair, and a love for the means of serving other people through that, there's nothing for hell to hook onto. So even though these evil spirits were coming at Swedenborg, they had no effect. And since they had no effect, they weren't able to do that, he talks about them lying down and being fed, because as I understand it, Swedenborg is essentially educating them, like, no, look, this is what's true. This is what's true. This is what's true and right and good. And that these, even though these guys came in trying to cause a problem, that they actually benefited from Swedenborg's recounting the truth. Now, important to understand, all this, what's good and true, is coming out of God. And it's nice that this is total chaos, this drawing, because life is total chaos. So when we talk about Swedenborg here, all this goodness and truth that he's living off of, it's really from the Lord. And all these truths that he's enumerating, the power from that comes from heaven. So the situation here is really that God is reaching out to these evil spirits, whom God loves, by the way, because they're people. They're just people like you and I who have latched on to what's negative and false, but that doesn't mean God is not interested in trying to give them every good thing they possibly can have. So here, through their attack on Swedenborg, through Swedenborg's ability to not be moved by it, they actually get a good heavenly meal brought into them. I don't know what the overall impact is, but this whole system, this is closer to how God sees everything. It's like, how can we bring good to everyone? And because Swedenborg can trust that, he's not getting all riled up by this attack that's coming in. That is a little message on the nature of love and nature of how God is seeing life, and why we don't need to be worried about it. So, because they got to hear the points of faith enumerated. In Isaiah, in those places, it is expressed symbolically how evil things can be in us and yet not harm us. Thus, that one not need be at all afraid on account of evils perpetrated when one is in the hand of God the Messiah. The case is similar in the church and also in the heavenly kingdom today, and later when evil spirits will learn. But these are secrets to be told prudently. So don't tell anyone that he told this to his journal and then we told it here. I think he knew it was going to be published. I mean, and there's certain indications. The point is, go and use it for good. So it looks like there's maybe some way we can continue to reach out to people who are in the grips of evil and falsity and help them. But look at this. In Isaiah, it's expressed symbolically how evil things can be in us and yet not harm us. You're not necessarily trying to scrub your mind and say, I had a negative thought today. I have these feelings that I think are repulsive or shouldn't be there. What am I going to do to get rid of them? They can be in you, but they cannot harm us. The less and less we follow their impulses, and the less and less we agree with them. We can let hell chatter away, just like those. Swedenborg didn't stop him from talking. Can let that stuff come in and chatter. But the more that we are able to have God build in us the goods and the truths that make actual life. Oh, sorry, God, I erased some of your shiny power. The less they can do. It's just nice to know that you're not looking for a total absence of anything negative as a sign that you've succeeded. Thus, one not need at all be afraid on account of evils perpetrated when one is in the hand of God Messiah. And it could even be, this is not just in your mind, but even in the world, that okay, things can happen, but in the end, we're getting a divine picture where God is using everything to bring good. Just like Swedenborg here was not worried because these evil spirits were coming in. He knew there was a bigger plan. There's a bigger plan when people and spirits and whatever are trying to destroy your sense of right and wrong. All of this when you really look down on it, the Lord has got the whole thing under the sway of divine providence. And in thinking of that, we know that whatever happens within this bubble eventually will turn to good. And as such, we don't have to worry. And that's the news from heaven. How to work? Is that something that you can take and put into your life in a way that, sure, we're talking about spirits and things, but can you incorporate these principles into your life in a way that whoever you interact with, when you are talking about the weather, or you are talking about how your day went, or you're going to get your car fixed or something, people, you are a more friendly person to be around. You are impacting the world in some kind of good way. Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear about that from you as to whether this equips you in a way that makes the world better, because that's the overall mission, as we think you can solve all the things in life that are not good. It's just about us doing our individual work to get to the right state of mind where the divine plan can flow through and do that. So let's get started. Thanks so much for talking this through with me today. Hope the rest of your day goes really good.